So this is whenever I spoke to earlier about cellular towers and their locations kind of following what population looks like. So as you can see in Boise, the population is higher and you're going to see the towers are much more dense. And as you go out into the rural areas of Idaho, you see that those towers are farther apart and they're going to provide coverage to much larger footprint.
Tell us what we see on slide 5.
This is just an example of what cellular towers can look like. So the traditional tower, kind of the second from the left, as well as providers' attempts to hide the towers to be more aesthetically pleasing via a cactus or a tree.
And what do we see on slide 6?
So on the left, you'll see a traditional cell phone tower that's divided into the 3 different sectors that I talked about earlier. So you can see the sets of antenna are facing 3 different directions. Then over to the right, when I talked about that circle, this is looking over top of a cellular tower, and you can see the 3 different sectors divided into equal pieces. You can also see at the top where there's a 0, it's a little bit smaller, harder to see, but that 0 starts there and just like a compass goes all the way around to 359 degrees. So whenever you're looking at a specific tower and sector, the provider will indicate the azimuth, which is basically the direction from the tower that specific sector, the midpoint of it. So if you're looking at sector 1, the azimuth of that sector would be 0 degrees, and you see plus 60 and minus 60 to equal 120.
A lot of information on this slide. What are we looking at?
This is just an example of what the call detail records that I spoke about earlier look like, specific to each carrier, starting with Verizon. And so what you'll see is the information I indicated, like the date, time, as well as on the right side, you'll see what starts with first serving cell site, first serving, it's kind of cut off, but that's showing the tower and sector that I would correspond with the tower list in order to place that on a map.
And page 8, what are we seeing there?
The same thing, just an example from AT&T, and you can see how the records and columns differ slightly, but still contain information as far as the date, time, originating number that starts the call, terminating number that ends the call, as well as the location information on the right side associated with the tower and sector that was used.
What are we seeing on page 9?
And then just to repeat, the same type of call detail record for T-Mobile.
Okay. Page 10, what is that?
So that's looking at how we would look at the Google location history. And so there you can see date and timestamp, the estimated latitude and longitude, and then the confidence column, which is what I spoke to earlier, as far as the margin of error that Google estimates that specific line. And then a device tag, which is a way for Google to associate a specific device that was utilized on the account that was reporting that location information.
In that, I think you called it a confidence column. Are there 2 different sources of information? And I get this is just an example, but if you can point out kind of those different sources of information and the numbers associated with those.
Yeah, so specific to this case, Google location history included locations that were derived from GPS, Wi-Fi, and cellular. That column there is where we can determine how that specific location was derived.
And the number next to it, what is that number?
To the left or to the right?
To the left.
To the left, that's the margin of error associated with that specific location in meters.
What are we seeing on slide 11?
So whenever you get into my report, those lines that are from a call detail record, I represent with basically a call information box so that way you can see the specific location that's mapped, what that record indicated for date, time, direction of the call, type of call, and then the azimuth or direction from that tower that interaction occurred, as well as any associated number for if it's a call or a text message.
What do we see on page 12?
These are the specific numbers that I was asked to conduct analysis on in this case. And then each one is going to be represented by a specific color whenever I place it on a map. So this is just basically a legend so that you can see whenever you observe a specific use on a map, which phone that I'm representing.